We're live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. It is Sunday, the 21st day of February, 2010. We're going to be live here for the next 2 hours. And the news every week just gets heavier and more serious, and more examples of just off the charts, Big Brother, 1984, Brave New World type society. It's unspeakable. I am shocked. Alex Jones, who lives this constantly, cannot believe how fast this is all moving. Here are the stacks. Back from the dead, Democrats vow to Rahm Emanuel through health care. I have a huge stack of government-sponsored terror news that has been declassified. 9 months before Operation Northwoods, government leaders suggested false flag terror in Dominican Republic to bomb our own embassy, to blame it on them. That's coming up. A lot of new developments with Joe Stack and the kamikaze attack Thursday in Austin, Texas, against the IRS/FBI building in the Echelon office building complex. Stack's family has told the AP that it sounds nothing like him, and the writing doesn't sound like him from the suicide note. Also, we've been covering this since last Wednesday, but it's just now really hit national news. And yes, it's true, and yes, it's happening everywhere that we know. Everywhere you spot check. We discovered 6 years ago that public schools were giving laptops all over the Western world, you pay for it in tax money, to the students for several reasons, several surveillance reasons. Everything they write, they say, they do, the English class, the history class lessons, everything is written. The health class is set up so that the articles you write, that you're ordered to write, are really dossiers on your family. That's been in the mainstream news, but only here and there. And that also, not so much the video camera in the last 5-6 years that are in all the new laptops. They're using that to watch you as well, and that's now confirmed. It's the audio. They're recording everything. So just be aware of that. And it's built into the cell phones, the laptops, the computers, everything. The switch happened about 6 years ago. And this is all declassified. It's just the average person, when you tell them this, can't believe it. But we'll break it down. And now the FBI is investigating. Give me a break. They're the ones behind it all. So that is coming up today. Also, Ron Paul won the presidential straw poll at CPAC, the big, all-important Republican conference they have every year. He got the biggest standing ovation a year ago. This time, he won the straw poll against Mitt Romney, Sarah Palin, all of them. Well, of course he did. And every time he gets up and gives an anti-war speech in front of Republicans, the whole House almost falls down. It's an illusion. It's a hoax that conservatives want war. It's a lie. It's a fraud. Are there some morons out there? Obviously. There's some Democrats out there that want war. But the majority of real conservatives don't want it. And understand that it's bankrupting this country. So that's coming up as well. Also, it's not hard to predict. I mean, we know their methodology. But I predicted in the last 6 months with the cybersecurity legislation, it's now passed the House, it's in the Senate, that the government would stage massive cyber attacks against themselves and others. They've now done that on the heels of this CNN special that aired last night, and they're about to ram through the Senate. And they admit on CNN they're going to take over the web, shut it down during emergencies. The Pentagon will run everything. They're already setting up the grid before they even pass the law. Very important radio broadcast lined up for you today. And we'll start breaking these stories down one after the other on the other side of this quick 1-minute break. The websites are Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Visit them while you still can. Now, there is a chance we can educate the public and stop this takeover of the web, but that's up to you. The internet cuts both ways. It can be used as a tool of incredible liberty and freedom and empower the free market and uplift the very poor and make the middle class wealthy. or it can be used as an iron fist of surveillance and control. And that's what DARPA and the Pentagon openly designed the internet for in the 60s and 1970s. That's not my opinion. That's what all the experts from across the political spectrum who've broken down the history of the internet worldwide clearly have concluded. In fact, here is the Wall Street Journal from this weekend, and this is the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and it says the digital dictatorship, and an image of a man with barbed wire wrapped around him as he sits in front of his computer. It's fashionable to hold up the internet as the road to democracy and liberty in countries like Iran, but it can also be a very effective tool for quashing freedom. And it mainly focuses on how China, Iran, and others use it to crack down and control people. But if you really look at the cybersecurity bill that's passed the House, that's actually what's being set up here in the United States. And simultaneously, the exact same policies and control systems are being put in Western Europe, England, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. So I'm going to get into this first today, then the latest on the kamikaze attack in North Austin on an IRS/FBI office building. We'll break down the latest developments on that front coming up. Also, Ron Paul has won the CPAC poll of who Republicans would like to be the next president. No surprise to us here. He got the biggest standing ovation last year at CPAC. But this is important because the Democrats and Republicans are beating the drum for new wars. But all the polls show the Democrats and Republicans don't want a new war. So we'll be going over that today. The bigger question is, what pretext will be used by our government as a reason to go to war with Iran? And so I want to go back over some of the history of declassified government-sponsored terrorism today, including something new last week that the State Department declassified. In fact, I sent you guys that IM and didn't see it in my stack. Will you print me the actual State Department page? Where they've now declassified that Bobby Kennedy, of all people, along with Robert McNamara, wanted to stage terror attacks against U.S. facilities as a pretext for war in Latin America. I know that Kennedy had said no to Operation Northwoods, a plan to bomb U.S. cities, but it looks like the Kennedys were for bombing U.S. bases to blame it. And Kennedy only got mad after the Bay of Pigs when the CIA sabotaged their own operation and then blamed it on him, and that's when he had his big wake-up call. We know Kennedy's never been perfect, but 50 years later, they are now declassifying all of this by the day. And, of course, then LBJ did stage some events, the USS Liberty and, of course, Gulf of Tonkin, both of those now completely declassified as staged events, uses pretext to launch wars or attempt to launch new wars. Now, the whole cybersecurity issue and how governments now that we're all addicted to the internet, taking it over as a tool of surveillance and control and massive censorship. It dovetails with articles out of the Associated Press, Reuters, you name it, where public schools across the United States, not just in Philadelphia, this is the latest case, give laptops to the children that taxpayers pay for. The media says these are free. No, they're not free. And they're using them to surveil. And they use the cameras, and they watch you at home. And this is now admitted. The principal admits it and says, what's the big deal? But I want to explain to people, it's not just computers given to you by the government. It was not declassified. Google announced it. So did Yahoo. In 2006, competing software they have that is on most new computers, it's embedded. It's hardwired in as the operating systems for the microphone and camera to watch you with an NSA/Google/Yahoo backdoor. And Google and Yahoo hid this in plain view. I mean, I screamed bloody murder in 2006. Some people laughed at me, even though I linked to Google and Yahoo's own press releases. And it's not just in Prison Planet. Sure, we broke it off of the Google press release. The Register publication, newspaper over in England, reported on it a few days later. So we'll be going over that. Because you need to know. I mean, I've had people in my office and people at my home say, why is there a postage stamp or a sticker stuck on your computer screen's cameras that are up at the top? And I said, oh, because the government and corporations dial in and watch with those, but I have trouble, plugging up the microphone. And then they laugh at you. This is not funny. Okay, this is not a joke. I know that's Big Brother, and it's hard for you to believe this is going on. But then overnight they come out very calmly and say, yes, we're listening and watching all of you. And yuppies don't like to be losers. So they just didn't overnight say, well, I like being watched. I like being listened to. That's freedom. And Alex is a kook because he doesn't like it. Alex was a kook saying it existed 4 years ago, and we just didn't check his documentation. But now that it's on Fox and CNN, and of course, they're reporting it like it's not that big of a deal. Well, it keeps the kids safe to be watched at school. And yeah, the school didn't tell people. And yeah, the principal called the young man in and said, you were doing something you shouldn't have been.